everybody, and welcome to this special HFS Research Videocast, where I'm joined by the winners of our Data and Decisions category in the HFS OneOffice Awards. My name's Sam Duncan. I'm a practice leader at HFS. I had the pleasure of being one of the judges on this category alongside my colleagues and fellow analysts, Ritika Fleming and Nikhil Bhaskar. With me today, I have Rajeev from Genpact and Sandeep from their partners at Sysco. So firstly, to both of you, congratulations. It was a really strong category. We had some great entries, so you must be really pleased to come out on top here. But it would be great to hear a little bit about yourselves, maybe your roles at Genpact and Sysco, and sort of who you are. So I think first we'll pass to you, Sandeep.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. My name is Sandeep Arora. I lead Sysco Business Services, which is truly a multi-function global business services organization that handles finance operations, HR operations, indirect sourcing, commercial services, master data, and kind of the overall transformation, PMO and program. So happy to be here and really happy to hear about our win with HFS. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thanks, Sandeep. Hello, everyone. My name is Rajiv Girder. I'm the relationship manager from Genpact side, aligned with the Sysco account. Been with Sysco, working with Sysco since last 4 years. In my previous role, that's when we actually, did this project for Sysco. I was working as a global process owner for invoice to cash, and my job was to kind of run the transformation projects for Sysco.
Awesome. So from a very, very high level, you both collaborated to develop a predictive model to address the issue of payment defaults, right, throughout the pandemic. I know you guys probably have a lot more details, so I'll pass over to you guys if you want to maybe talk about your entry a little bit in detail, the challenge you were trying to solve, the outcomes, and sort of how you did it. I don't know who wants to take the mantle first.
Yeah, no, I can go first. Right. So when the pandemic started, we were already in the middle or towards probably the hypercare stage of a finance transformation journey that we had been going on for about 18 months to 2 years. And just as the pandemic hit, it was obviously one of the areas that we had to focus on, which is how will our collections work? How much of it will default, which of our customers are impacted by this pandemic more than the others, right? I'll give you an example that while schools were closed down, hospitals were really open, right? And they were buying food from us. So the first thing we did was kind of segmented our base to figure out what are the customer management practices that we have to deploy across our segmented base to make sure that we are talking to our customers, with the right lens. If they are not impacted, how do we make sure that they get the product they need? If they are impacted, what are the ways in which we can help them, right? So we looked at all that impacted population to then start understanding payment plans, things like moratorium on your debt and things like that. Which really helped them stay alive. But at some point in this journey, we also started figuring out that a large portion of our base really acts more like B2C credit, right? So then Rajiv and I, as we were brainstorming, thinking about the solutions here, both of us come from B2C backgrounds in terms of managing credit. So, and credit card companies, those commercial and consumer retail companies do a lot of work on predictive modeling around default. So we felt there was an opportunity here to build this propensity to pay algorithm to not only get better outcomes on the credit side, but also help a team that was inundated with credit questions and didn't know which customers to go first to manage their risk, right? So it was not just about managing risk, it is also about creating a process that helps our associates get to the right things at the right time and talk to the right people at the right time. So that's when Genpact came up with this model of looking at not just payment behavior, past payment behavior of our customers, to model future behavior, but also threw in data points like unemployment in a zip code, mobility in a zip code. Is the zip code shut down or what have you? So we put those external factors in to then start saying, how does it start predicting risk there? So the model is a huge success. It is still working. It creates a great framework for our credit team to talk to our customers. One of the things I took from my time at American Express is never talk to a customer that doesn't need to be spoken with, because that is a negative experience. More times than not, if you call somebody for collection, when they were just going to cut the check, they actually feel really hurt that you didn't wait for them to pay and you had to remind them. So when we started doing this, our outcomes were simple: manage loss, manage the work of the team. Our bad debt, our past dues are the best ever. We exited COVID with very little loss related to COVID. We were anticipating almost a third of our portfolio to go, but we managed it really, really well. The workload for the team is 30 to 40% lower in terms of what they're doing, right? In terms of the work, in terms of tasks they are handling. So overall, a win-win. And I think that the best recognition for this whole effort came from a customer who actually wrote to us saying, I would not have survived the pandemic if you all hadn't done what you did. So, there is a data point that we talk about, that customers, restaurants who work with Sysco are more successful than the restaurants that work with other companies, not just because of credit, but because of our overall offering of what we bring to the table. And this was just one of the things that we brought to the table as a value add to our customers during a very, very difficult time. I'm going to turn over to Rajiv to add to what I just said.
Yeah, Sandeep, I couldn't have explained it any better. So thanks for that. I would not go through all the details again, but just to touch upon, when COVID had hit us, we realized that, the business cannot just rely or cannot afford to just rely on the data that is not backed up by, some intelligence in terms of how the market is evolving. And that's where this model kind of brings in that intelligence into the collections process or into the credit process. It not only improves the customer experience, it also helps the credit analyst to take the informed decision to kind of, when to contact the customer, who to contact, and, how should you contact the customer? So all those kind of details are touched upon in this model, which really helps the overall collections process.
No, that's fantastic. I think as well, Sysco would have been in quite a unique position going into the pandemic, because while, many businesses were lucky they could just completely pivot to remote work or completely close their doors. I know in the UK we had the furlough scheme and stuff like that. The food industry had to keep going, right? People had to keep eating, and there were huge pivots to food deliveries and stuff like that rather than dining in. So it must have been a massive challenge in that sense. And then I think you've touched on all of the key areas really that we look for in engagements like this. You spoke about expecting to lose a third of your portfolio and obviously seeing much better results. And then not just that, but the customer experience through not sort of unnecessarily contacting them. And then even the experience of your own employees, that their workload's reduced, they can focus on sort of higher value tasks and add sort of more value to the business, but also feel more fulfilled in themselves. So it seems sort of across the entire chain, there was value driven throughout for every stakeholder, which I think is one of the key reasons that this was such a great entry. So Rajiv, were there any surprises throughout the journey, would you say? Maybe anything you didn't expect to be such a positive outcome that was? Maybe a significant challenge or a hurdle or anything that you learned that going into this you didn't think you would?
I mean, there were challenges, right? It was one of those projects wherein we wanted to kind of do things right in the first go, because we had the need to kind of do it right immediately. So and one thing that we have always struggled in these kind of initiatives is the data, right? I mean, you have to make sure that the data is absolutely accurate and you have the right set of data to kind of even see in the first step that it's going to work for you, right? So we had to run a lot of modeling on our side in terms of making sure that it's generating the output that is meaningful for us. So I think those were the pretty initial challenges that we faced. But once we got started with the data and collecting the data and putting the modeling in place, I think it was pretty smooth thereafter. One other thing that I would like to call out is that we realized this need of this during the pandemic, right? And one thing that I always believe we should have done long back is like get started with this before pandemic. Maybe it would have gotten a better result. But yeah, I think it happened when it was supposed to. But that's one of the learnings there. Sandeep, over to you.
So yeah, I agree with all the stuff that Rajiv said, right? Data, clarity, what are the variables or attributes we will include in the model versus not, right? Which have the highest probability of predicting the behavior, right? So, all those we had to work through. And MVP1 was MVP1, right? It kind of gave us direction, but it wasn't quite all the way there. So in an agile manner, we continue to provide feedback and continue to iterate to get to the right model. And look, it's a continuous journey. I don't think we're done yet in the sense that, it predicts with a certain level of accuracy. I'd like it to get better. And I believe the machine learning aspect of the model will make it better. So it'll learn and it'll only add more and more value to the process. So, I'm glad we didn't wait for perfection. I'm glad we went with good, and we'll perfect it as we go and, using our experience with it.
I think, Sandeep, you brought up a great point. And that's what the flexibility in this model really makes it very unique, because now that the pandemic is fading away, we're looking at other external parameters that we can include in this model that will make it more relevant to the current times. So I think that's another thing that as we evolve, we're looking at it.
No, that's fantastic. Continuous improvement, scalability are all sort of key things with these kinds of engagements. And it's great to see that you're pivoting and sort of applying it elsewhere as we move out of the pandemic and into a hopefully pandemic-free economy. But so I think, Rajiv, you kind of touched on my next question a little bit, which is with the benefit of hindsight, is there anything you do differently? I know you've already mentioned maybe starting it earlier, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
Nothing really. I think it worked out exactly the way we wanted it to. I know it took us longer to kind of realize that there's a need for something like this, but I think when we realized that need, we were pretty fast in kind of making sure that we have this in place. Even if it is not at a stage, like Sandeep said, where we wanted to be, we started with it. And I think we are at a point wherein the model is kind of operating at 85% plus accuracy. And we are looking at areas to kind of improve it further. So yeah, I think apart from the fact that we could have started it a little early, I don't think there is anything else that I would like to change if I were to go back.
Yeah, look, I agree with that. I mean, we took some time to get started. I agree because, again, just to Rajiv's point about data, about all that. So had we recognized the need earlier, I think we started talking about it as soon as I came in and I saw the portfolio. I think Rajiv and I immediately started talking about, hey, we need to build a brain here. Otherwise, it's too much data for individuals to sift through and figure out, okay, I need to talk to this customer or not. So I think we would have been even better space if we had started a little bit earlier. But again, our data, which comes through Quora, was getting mature. And as we started seeing some consistency in that data is when we, consistency and clarity is when we kind of went into it. So could we have done a model before? Yes. Could we have created a similar impact? Maybe not, right? Because I think the burning platform was COVID. And that created the impact in a much, much pronounced way, because BAU, this would have been a BAU capability. During COVID, this became a capability that actually helped our customers, work better with us, save their business, all of that, right? So, I think the fairy tale aspect of the model would have been lost if we had started earlier. But that probably is the only thing I would do differently. Other than that, this was a near perfect kind of program in its own way. I truly feel like that.
No, that's truly fantastic to hear, honestly. So I think just one final super quick question, and I think Sandeep, I'll throw it straight back at you. You get no time to think about this one. What advice would you offer any of your peers that are embarking on a similar journey? Obviously, hopefully the economic environment's never going to be quite the same with the lockdowns, etc. But if anyone was embarking on a somewhat similar journey, if you had any sort of tidbits for them, what would they be?
Well, I say this often: start curating your data right away, right? If you're not doing it, if you don't have a data strategy or a data warehouse where all the data flows, please start that right now, because without that, all this predictive math is not really possible. Be open to failure. Perfection is the enemy of good, or start whatever. So be open to failing, but start small and then go. Crawl, walk, run. I mean, this area was the one area that, lent itself very naturally to this work. There was a business imperative. So the other thing I will tell them is, don't let a good crisis go to waste. You leverage that crisis to the fullest to get these kind of capabilities. Once this predictive capability came, now we're putting predictive capability everywhere. We're putting predictive capability in accounts payable, predicting which invoice is going to be wrong. We're putting predictive capability in our talent acquisition to figure out which of these associates will stay with us, right? So I think you start small, and that creates the energy to do more. The success there creates the energy to do more.
That makes a lot of sense. And then Rajiv, I suppose you get our final remarks here. Any advice for anyone that was sort of embarking on a similar journey?
No, I think Sandeep kind of covered it all. I mean, start looking at the data as soon as you realize that you have enough to kind of analyze and come up with some meaningful insights. I think that's the key to kind of get to a point where we are at this point. So that's the only advice that I would like to give.
No, perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense. The using a win to underpin more growth in an engagement is just such a powerful way to go. So completely agree with that. Well, listen, it's been fantastic to have you both here for this quick video cast and hear a little bit about the application and the engagement from yourselves. So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everybody at home that's listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening, morning, and wherever you are.
Thank you all. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah,
thanks, HFS. We truly appreciate the recognition, and it takes a village to create impact like this. So I thank Genpact as well. There was a great commitment from them as partners to do this with us. So thank you again to them as well.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much.